The NHL Draft is quickly approaching, which means that we need to talk about some of the prospects. Luckily, today I have Russ Cohen, aka Sportsology, that's going to help me along with discussing the prospects. This is all coming up here on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked on Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked on Blues. I am your host of Locked on Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues. Here, a part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, I am joined by Russ Cohen that will be discussing the NHL Draft with me. And Russ has a bunch of work on NHL Draft Buzz, SiriusXM, NHL, and also he is one of the co-hosts of the Locked on Flyers podcast. But before I dive deeper into anything, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. We're going to talk about Monopoly Go, the fast-paced game that lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes, unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go, now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Hello, Russ. How are you today?
Good, Haley. Good seeing you.
Good seeing you too. So when it comes to the NHL draft, you're the first person that comes to my mind because there's nobody that knows any of these prospects better than you. So I told everybody on yesterday's episode, I'm like, I'm going to be speaking to a draft expert because throughout the season with the Flyers, I know that you would go down and do different scouting events and seeing these guys play. So right now, it looks like the Blues will be getting that 16th overall pick, which honestly, for me, I'm not happy about since I like Sam.
13 to 16 is my guess for them. I'm not a big math guy, but it seemed that way.
Yeah, because the probability just doesn't seem like it's going to work out in the Blues' favor. But I guess the Flyers are in a similar situation as well with being.
They're locked into 12 pretty much.
Yeah, so not so good, which is why I'm hoping that you can kind of boost the confidence of not only myself, but to all the viewers of Locked on Blues, and maybe give us a couple names that might be really solid picks later on in the draft rather than, the big names that we're seeing in the top 5.
Yeah, no problem. First thing I would say is, when you're going 13 to 16, 13 is actually an interesting spot because you're still in a spot where you're looking for players who might have fallen. And you think they're a great value. Like, as an example, Cole Eiserman won't be there at 13. He may fall a little bit because some people don't like his off the puck play, but I'm not one of them that's overly bothered by that. But that's just, they could say that. I've seen this guy score every single game that I've seen him play, and he's not Oliver Wahlstrom. For people that think he's Oliver Wahlstrom, watch it again because he's not. And Wahlstrom's had issues because some of it because of the Islanders, quite frankly. So I don't like necessarily hearing that, but you're not going to, the Blues aren't going to get a top line center or a first pairing defenseman. I mean, it could happen. Anything could happen, but most likely odds are they're not.
Because I really like Sam Dickinson.
Yeah, now Dickinson, if they got Dickinson somewhere in that 13 to 16 spot, that would be great. I think he's going to be gone soon because of the London hype. But to be honest, I don't know if he's any better offensively than Bonk that the Flyers have. So I don't think he's a top power play guy. I don't. And so if he's a power play 2 guy, he's still got real good value. He still could play top pairing, or maybe he's going to turn into a 3. But he's probably a 2. I don't know. There's some things I don't love about Dickinson, but he would be a good pick in that spot because he's going to play. Like, I'm sure he's going to play in the NHL. It's just I don't know how much offense he'll bring, right? So, guys like Tijay Ginla, Jerome's kid, you're not going to see him. He'll be long gone. Even if Berkeley Catton falls a little bit, I have him 10th, but even if he falls a little bit, I don't think he's fallen to 13. So I don't think you're going to get that player either. Some other interesting guys, a guy who's definitely moving up is Teddy Stiga. I've been high on him all year. He's doing great right now at the U18 Worlds, and he's the kind of guy that plays great off the puck. He's actually smart. He's got a great shot. He's just very he's got great hockey IQ, and when you talk to him, he's just a calm guy that understands hockey, and that would be a guy that would track well with the Blues. Like at 16, at that point, if he's still on the board, I got to look at him.
Right.
Trevor Connolly, same thing. Connolly looks great in this tournament. Yes, he had that one off ice thing that people could read about if they want. I don't think it's anything you have to worry about. And the fact that he's going to play in Providence for Nate Lehman, who's a high character guy, I don't think he would take a chance if there was any kind of issues there. So I don't think there's any issue. And his play is great. So again, if he's there, which he could be, Trevor Connolly would be great. An interesting one. Michael Brandenseg Nygaard. He plays in Allsvenskan, and I think he's from Norway. And that's a guy who he's got the power game a little bit. He's not huge. He's like 6'1", but he's got a lot of skills. He's a goal scorer. I just feel like he tracks with what the Blues look for. And the other good thing is you would have a little time to let him develop. And sometimes that's good because the Blues have already, I don't know. I think in the past, they've been too quick to sign guys to like
Way
ELCs,
too quick.
too quick to put them into the league. I mean, you could look at Kyrou, even Thomas, who's terrific, probably
Yeah,
got
but they
rushed.
put him right in.
Yeah.
Jake
So,
Neighbors, what I did like what they did with him was they actually took the time to develop Neighbors before setting him
yes.
up, which is why I feel like he had such an incredible season. But the Blues, I mean, it's funny in a way, but I feel like their number one focus in this draft should be defense. And I have a feeling that they're going to try to go with a center. That's just how I'm
Yeah.
feeling about this.
My feeling is if they're going to go defense, so here's a few names. So, like, G. Bouillon, he'll be gone.
Yeah.
Parayko will be gone. Dickinson, maybe he'll be there, but most likely gone. Now, Jesse Pulkkinen will be there. I like him. I think he's 6'6", 6'7". He's got a lot of finesse in his game, but he also can knock the snot out of you too. He's really going to be a little bit of a project. He is playing with Liga, and yeah, he's in Liga and he's playing for JYP. I overall, I thought he was really good in the World Juniors and felt like he really showed me something where it was like, okay, this guy's big. He definitely could play in the league. He's not going to be, Parayko. He's not going to be that.
Right.
But, that next thing below that, yeah, maybe
But
he could
having a
be
big
something.
body to generate
Having the big
something is
body
better than what
helps.
Corey Krug's doing right now. So
Yeah. So I think
which is
there's a chance for him. Also defensively, Adam Juracek, that's David's brother, had some
no.
injuries. So he was higher early in the year. I do like him. I do think he's physical. He's got he's a good skater. There's definite offensive ability there. So I think there's that. If they're truly going to look for a center and not for best player available, Sasha Bovair may be there for Muskegon in the USHL, and he scored 30 goals this year. I did a great article on him on I think that one was for EP Rinkside, and a lot of my work is there. It's behind a paywall, so that's why I don't say it a lot because I'm not expecting everybody to just sign on for my stuff, but you probably should. But if you don't, it's okay. But the thing
And
about
just so everyone knows, this is going to be on NHLBuzz.com. So if you're wanting to kind of see visually what Russ is talking about with all these prospects and how he has them ranked, just go to NHLDraftBuzz.com.
yeah,
I mean,
thanks.
NHLBuzz.com, not the draft.
No, it is draft. No, it's
Oh, it's the draft. Okay, I had the
NHLDraftBuzz.com.
draft.
Yeah, so
See,
that's
now
fine.
I'm confusing people.
That's all right. But yeah, I started that site a few months ago, and that's just so I could put just prospect work there, and it's also got historic stuff. So like on the very front, you'll see a picture of Owen Tippett at like 17, me interviewing him at the draft. So you'll see Malkin as like a
Connor
kid.
Bedard's on here.
Yeah. So some fun stuff, and there's some videos in there. I don't know if I put the Couturier one up again, but I do have definitely. Oh, I have Cutter Gauthier, I believe. Whether people want to hear from him or not, that's a whole other story. But getting back to this, Bovair is good. He's a really good skater. He is a true center. He's a guy with real upside. Like he's definitely a second line talent. and
Yeah.
maybe could be a first liner, but that would take a lot. I mean, that would be a big jump. And knowing how the Blues are, I don't think they're going to be hurting at that position for any time in the near future. So, that's where I think a second line guy slots in. He's a goal scorer and he's a smart kid. So that's another guy. Igor Chernikov, Chernichov,
All these
very
names.
good.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good left winger. Has a good shot. Definitely can score. But again, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And this isn't something I would say for all teams, but I don't know. I feel like the Blues aren't like in a rush to get Russians again. I don't know
No,
how you feel about that, but it just seems
I
like,
don't think so.
yeah, seems like they're, haven't had
We
a
love some of
good
the players
time.
that we have, but I don't think they're gonna. I mean, I know who I'm talking about. Before I
But
continue
they
this
weren't
conversation,
drafted. But they weren't drafted by the team. That's the
no,
whole
they
thing.
weren't. Which, yeah, because it's a tricky situation. We saw that with Philadelphia,
Yeah.
especially getting them over here. But before we continue on, I want to let you know about Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We're going to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know you're saying flag the play. You already talked about that. But there is just so much good stuff going on in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you can work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get with unique stickers that you can even trade. And also, you have cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games, like digging for treasure and so much more. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. I love as soon as I begin talking, they begin doing the lawn mowing outside.
Of
So,
course. Yeah, that's always
of
great.
course,
I did want
naturally.
to mention that Chernyshov has a really good wrist shot, and he does get to the net. He cuts through traffic well. So, he is a guy that I think they have to at least talk about. Liam Greentree is another one who I think he'll be there. He needs a little work on his skating, but he's a really accurate passer. He's smart on the power play. He plays both ends of the ice. I really like the way he shields the puck from defenders, and he can work in traffic. But he has to work on his skating. I feel like that's a guy St. Louis would vibe with. Uh, right now, again, it's not going to fill either of the two things you want him to fill because he's a right winger. But he's a talented kid, and he's been getting a lot of play in international. He's been getting to play a lot internationally. So he's another guy I think that would slot there well. Now I know
You
they
know
have,
what the problem is, though, Russ? And I was thinking
yeah,
about this. And it's so ironic with the Flyers. But the one player that has just been really problematic offensively has been Kevin Hayes. He usually centers that third line. And in the past couple of games before they were eliminated from the playoffs, he was actually healthy scratched. So a part of me wonders if they move Kevin Hayes to a wing position, then who would fill that? I mean, I'm sure that they could always move up guys like a Nathan Walker from the fourth line and put him in the third line.
yeah,
But would it be unrealistic to look at this and say, with some shifting around, the Blues could potentially draft a winger and move some guys to play center that are already on the roster?
yeah,
Would that be
yeah,
something that's possible? I mean, I feel like that could be possible, but
yeah.
are any of these guys NHL ready?
No, I mean nobody you're getting at that spot's going to be NHL ready. Uh, even someone like Bovair could definitely play both wing or center. He's 48% on faceoffs right now this year, so he's pretty good at it already. But yeah, I could see a shift like that. That wouldn't shock me. And yeah, because Kevin Hayes has his moments. That's why he gets scratched sometimes. And you know, you want him when things are going great. He's great on your team. I'll say that. Anyhow, moving on. So there's 9 picks, which I think St. Louis has done a good job with that. 2
Yeah.
seconds, but 1 second's going to be really late. 2/3, one of them is going to be late. So yeah, as we move, down the ladder here. So some other guys to look at. Luke Misa. Yeah, I know his brothers. They all talk about his brother, who's going to be a top 5 pick next year. But
Yeah.
Luke is good. He's a really good playmaker. He had a lot of points this year, something around 70 or 80 points. Really do like him. really good skater. I think he's more of an edge guy than a speed guy. But I think he is a guy that, yeah, you could look at and say with that, if he's still there for maybe their second round pick, which would probably be in the middle there somewhere, be a good choice. I'll give you another guy, Emil Hemming. I mean, I have him as a first rounder, but he could slip to the second round. He's playing in the U18 Worlds now. Physical, he's got a terrific shot. He's a younger guy. He's been playing on all these veteran teams overseas, but when he plays against his own age group, he's really, really good. And so I think he is a guy that, yeah, would fit with St. Louis because of the physicality part. I feel like they do like to have that in some of their forwards, so that he would be a guy. Moving on, Brody Ziemer, if he were to be there in the middle of the second, is great. I think he's third in scoring right now for the U.S. He made a play that he's been making all year. Like he'll play the penalty kill. He'll get a puck. He'll steal it, get it going the other way, make a nice pass, or be there for the give and go. He's really good, very smart, knows everything on the ice. Hockey IQ is way up there. Great shot. He's not a true goal scorer, but he is he's a hustler out there with a lot of skill. And I feel like, yeah, if you got him in the second, that would be a guy who, someday, could really play with anybody. He could play on the first line, the second line, the third line. Wouldn't shock me. But
that's how I feel a lot about, Jake Neighbors. I talked about him before, but they put him on every single line throughout the season. And I don't think there's any other guys on the Blues I really rotated as much as Neighbors has. But the second line right now with Braden Schenn, again, that's another one that's not as strong. And I feel like the Blues, now they're fine in centers when it comes to that because obviously Schenn's not going to move. But just even having somebody that could just be either side of the wing, because sometimes Kyrou, I mean, this is so inconsistent with him sometimes too, but just can be that big dynamic force.
I'm a big Kyrou guy, though. I think he got over that, whatever he was going through with the team, and you could see the talents there. So I don't worry about him that much. But what you're saying about Neighbors is true. I like Neighbors, and I do think they're just trying to find the right spot for him. And I do think, he is versatile that way. I think he could be a 25-goal scorer in this league. And so someone like Ziemer, I think, would be like a 20-goal scorer, but like a 65-point guy. He's a clutch goal scorer.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah,
because that's how Robert Thomas is when it comes to points. I mean,
but Thomas is now into the 90s. Yeah, he's into the 90 range now.
It's insane. And during the beginning of the season, I predicted, I'm like, oh, he's going to get at least 80 points. And I'm like, oh, nope, he went up there. But the Blues need more players that are going to be scoring goals because I feel like it's just the same couple players on the team. You saw a lot of Saad towards the end of the season. So with this draft class, is there any, and again, it may not be a guy that the Blues even get, but when it comes to a prospect that is just insane when it comes to goal scoring, is there one that comes to your mind? Obviously, excluding like the top 5 guys.
Yeah. Like Yzerman's the big guy for that. I'll give you some guys before that. I wanted to mention a defenseman, Thomas Galvis. He is a Czech. He's from Czechia. Now, he's the kind of guy, he's 5'10", 177, but as a defenseman, super feisty, and they have Torrey Krug, right? They're not afraid of getting that smaller guy, but he goes to the net like a forward. He makes great cross ice passes, terrific on the power play, great one timer, can play the point. He's blocking. He's a shot blocker. He's a guy who gets the puck up the ice safely. So he's another defenseman where if you can get him late second or third. But now goal scorers, there's a kid, Will Zellers, who played with Shattuck. Let me see what he scored this year.
Yeah, this is awesome. Russ is like an encyclopedia when it comes to all these prospects. I'm loving this. And again, make sure you go to NHL draftbuzz.com.
Yep, you got it right.
To find out all the information about what's being talked about. And again, make sure to check out Locked On Flyers to see Russ and Rachel, who will be covering the Philadelphia Flyers daily. I mean, they have been, obviously, but check that out, too, for more coverage because I break everything down, and it's a really good work that you guys do.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, we have fun. Zellers was the top goal scorer at Shattuck. Shattuck's a big school. 111 points. He had played there a few years, but he's just comfortable there. Now he's going to leave and go to college. 57 goals.
57 goals.
Yeah, and he's a guy that could slip to the early third or late second. So he's a guy to keep an eye on because
I like that.
there's another guy, Aiden Park, who plays there at Shattuck. He also can score goals, but also can get you assists. He's another guy who I think will be a third rounder. And since the Blues have a couple of thirds, maybe that's a guy they look at too, because I think he could be at least a 25 goal scorer in the NHL. His uncle Richard Park played many years in the NHL, so he's got the background there.
Before we continue on, I'm going to tell everybody about my friends at FanDuel, and then I have a follow-up question for you, Russ, about some of these players. It's winner take all this time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 this bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So you mentioned, I'm going to mispronounce his name, the guy that scored the 100 and another 57.
Will Zellers, 111 points.
Will Zellers. Okay.
Yep.
Now, a player like him, you said that he could slip to the second or third. Why is, and this is just a basic draft question that I feel like the audience might want to know too. Why is it that a player like him would slip so far down when it seems like he can bring a lot? Is there?
Well, and he can bring a lot. He has played with some of the elite players in the U.S. program, but right now he's at prep school, so the cycle is going to be longer, and he's going to go to college, and he'll definitely be in college for at least 2 years. So the cycle's longer. And because he stayed an extra year at Shattuck, some teams will count that against him, but sometimes players want to stay that extra year closer to home. I mean, that happens. So I look at it, and he's still only 18. Like, that's really the main thing. Actually, he was 3 years at Shattuck because he was there at 15. But he really likes it there, so why not have him there if he's comfortable? I don't really have a problem with it. I don't think it's the age factor at all. He's 5'11", so he's he could handle things. But yeah, he has been there since 2021, 22. So it's been a few years, but he's going to North Dakota. North Dakota is really good. I don't know if Dave Haxtell will be at North Dakota next year, but I doubt it. Just for a fun little aside.
That is, yeah.
I'm just looking if there's anybody else who might be like Max Plant is a really good player, but he's not a true goal scorer. He's probably a 20 goal scorer in the NHL, but his father Derek has played in the NHL, and that's a really good player. He should be a guy they could get in the second round. So that's somebody. Yeah, goal scorers are tough. Like, goal scorers are very hard to come by, and I think in this draft you can get 5 or 6 really top goal scorers. But you see, the problem is a lot of times when they come into the league, it takes them a while. Like, look at Flyers Tyson Forster. He's clearly a goal scorer, but it's going to take him a while until he can get to that 30 goal mark.
Right, and this year he did a good job for what it was, but it just wasn't enough. And that's why I commend some of the players. I know I keep on mentioning Neighbors, but I mean, what he did was just so impressive but again, he was slow when he started out, but just scoring. But even when you look at the Blackhawks and Connor Bedard, everyone expected him to score. His expectations were really unfair, but again, another player that everyone put a lot of pressure on because he scored so much previously, and he did a good job, but it's not what I think anyone expected. But last question.
What do you think they expected? I mean, I've been taking all this grief. He had 61 points.
Right.
And nobody's really scored on the Blackhawks. The next guy was Kurashev with like 57. Then the next guy was like 40-something points. Like, nobody scored on the Blackhawks. So, of course, he's going to be a minus 40-something. It's amazing. And I love Brock Faber, but I had all these Wild fans just pile on to me when I said I put Bedard as the number 1 guy for the Calder. And I do believe he's going to win it. And I think he deserves it. If he would have played a full season, he would have gotten probably 75 points in a rookie season. Right. I don't know what else.
That injury also hurt too. I mean, I think the expectations for Bedard, and I think Chicago fans, I have to deal with them all the time on this podcast, is that they're a little bit delusional because they thought getting Bedard was going to instantly get them to the playoffs. And I truly believe that's how they felt. And you have to look at it as one player cannot carry a team. Now you could
No,
say, oh, what about Sidney Crosby and the Penguins? No, he had help. He had Fleury for a long time in net. He had Malkin. Like, he had so many other players around him. So when you look at the Blackhawks, there's not a lot of support staff.
no.
But I do think that when you have a team that's just flat out bad, and I'm not saying that in a mean way, but it's just a factual statement.
Yeah,
There's only so much that a rookie player can do. And I feel like the expectations I had on Bedard were so unrealistic that if he ever missed a shot, it was like, oh no, this was a draft bust. And I'm like, why are you being so difficult on this kid that is
right.
probably your best player, not even this season, but probably next season and the season after, because
Oh, yeah,
they
he'll be
don't
their best
have
player for a long
talent.
time. Yeah, even if
I
Celebrini becomes a Blackhawk, Bedard will be their best player.
I'm
So
really
last
hoping that it goes to the Sharks.
Yeah, last guy. So there's a guy, Dean Letourneau, who I interviewed on EP Ringside. He's 6'7", over 200 pounds, and he's a center. So this is like your dream pick here for you. He
Okay.
um, he probably will be there in the second. I don't think he's going to get drafted in the first, but he just finished Canadian University. Like, that's where he played this year. So again, he's 18, so he's a little bit behind on the curve. Uh, 61 goals, 66 assists, 127
Wow.
points. They do play against some older players. They play against prep schools in the States, and they play against, some college aged players in that when they play in Canadian University. He's going to play in USHL next year and Boston College 2025-26. So if you get this
Wow.
guy, you're not going to see him until he's like 22, 23. So he's going to be one of those 4 or 5 year guys, but he
That's
is
okay.
he has goal scoring ability. He has finesse. He understands his path and he knows what he's going to be, and he's got that big body. So don't be shocked if Letourneau comes up and talks, and that's why I saved him for the end, because he could be that guy, but it's going to just be a while for the development.
And I think with the Blues, we signed 4 different Swedes actually to their
Yeah,
entry level contracts a couple of days ago. And I think that I understand with the draft, you want to get players that might be NHL ready as soon as possible. But we have so much talent coming up as it is. And if we have players down the line that we draft now that are going to be these big threats, then I would rather the Blues do that, because I think Doug Armstrong, and I have my own thoughts about him. I do think, though, he does draft well. That is the one thing I will give him.
well, I mean,
That
yes, his organization does a pretty good job. I'm actually going to look over the last
just
couple and tell you what
DeBoer
I think.
Dvorsky last year, who we picked in the first round, that was, well, our first
Oh,
pick of
I'm
the
a
first
big
round.
divorce. I like Dvorsky, so I
Yeah,
think,
and I think I talk to you so much about that all the time. I'm like, DeBoer
yeah,
Dvorsky, 'cause he
but he's going to
literally
take a little
probably,
while.
he's not gonna be here right away, but just knowing that in the near, like, a minute, like, maximum maybe 3 years,
Yeah. I like
maybe.
Stenberg last year. Stenberg could play
Yeah,
quicker than a lot of other
he
guys because he's super physically strong and also has a nice scoring touch, but a good all around game. Uh, Snuggerud is probably there next year. I mean,
well,
if
I
all
was
goes
really
right.
upset because he decided to go back to college this season, and I get
Yeah,
it.
but
I'm
at
not
the
gonna look
end of but at the end of next year, when he's done with
he
college,
he can come up for a
you
couple
should
games.
see him. Right. That's what I mean by that. And you'll
Yeah,
see
which
him.
is good. I
And
just wish I could see
Snuggerud's
him.
great. I'm a big fan. This kid is super smart, hockey family, goal scorer.
He
Zach Bolduc.
embodies everything about the Blue Note.
Yeah, Zach Bolduc's an interesting one. He did get some games this year. He's not quite ready. And I spoke to him at the rookie photo shoot this year. And so he's like right there. He's not, he's probably a third liner, but he's
And
another
with
guy
Bolton,
that could fill a role.
which is funny, when he came to Philadelphia, I actually interviewed him about, he scored his first NHL goal on his 21st birthday. And it was like
Right.
one of the funniest things, because it was like the sequence of events. And there's so much potential when it comes to him. But I do feel like he needs more time, a little bit more time on the Thunderbirds, just to get up to speed, because there was moments where he did struggle with puck possession.
Yeah.
And that's something where you need that time in the AHL, and it's not a bad thing to be in the AHL. I feel like a lot of
No, no,
people,
no. AHL is good. Yeah, I
yeah.
think Bolduc probably felt like he was ready based on the conversation I had with him and he's just not quite there. You know what I mean? So it's fine. I mean,
Yeah,
it's good. It's good to have those aspirations, but this is what makes the Blues a pretty good drafting team. So, like in 2020, they took Matt Kessel, who I really liked and thought he
Matt
could be
Kessel's
like
awesome.
good depth defenseman. Like third pairing. And yeah, look, I mean, he's already played 39 games for them. Next year, maybe he'll be a regular, or maybe he'll come up at some point. But
I think he's
that's a
gonna be a regular.
guy.
I'm giving him a
Yeah,
spot heading into the season.
yeah, I mean, so that's a guy that was a really good pick. I feel like the Blues' last 3 drafts have been really good. Another guy who's under the radar, Dylan Peterson. He
Yep.
he's with BU. He is not going to be a big scorer, but he's kind of like that prototypical fourth line center, big body. And he got 3 games with Springfield. He's 22. You give him another year, maybe even 2 in the AHL, and he's a guy I think that will play and he's a good guy. Like his teammates love him. So that's another guy. I like Simone Robertson too, who I don't know if
They
he
just
was one
signed
of the
him to an
guys
entry
they
level.
did. Right. So
Yep.
and he's a guy that I think you just need to see him in North America. So I do feel like they have some guys coming. They're not bereft of picks, and that's a good thing.
No, which is good.
Prospects, I mean. Yeah.
You know what's funny? You mentioned the 2020 draft, and what's so funny about that draft, Russ, is I talk about that a lot because that was the draft where Neighbors was taken, and I believe it was he was late in the draft too. It was like
Did I just see third round, was it?
it was late in the first round, I believe. Was it late
Oh
in the
yeah, no,
first
he
round?
was a first. Well, I don't know. Let's
But it
see.
was late. They had a late pick that season, definitely in the 20s. But
Oh yeah, he's 26. Yeah, that's right. He was a first rounder.
which is such a surprise because usually when you draft that late, you don't expect maybe to get like this phenomenal player. And he's been the highlight of the season for me. So I'm hoping that in a couple years from now, a player that the Blues draft in this draft will be able to do that.
Yeah, he
But
was
one
a
thing I
really
want to
good junior player. He just, he doesn't have speed, so they have to work on his speed. It's things like that. But yeah, neighbors can play.
And one thing I wanted to talk to you before I wrap up today's episode. So I know that this upcoming draft in Las Vegas, I'll be there. I know you're going to be there. A bunch of
Yep.
people will be. This is also the last in-person draft,
We
they
think.
said. So
We
it's
don't
not
know if
confirmed.
it's not they
Now,
haven't said it for sure, like the league hasn't said it for sure yet.
so theoretically or hypothetically or anythetically, if this is the last in-person draft, just so we kind of get a better understanding, because you probably know more about this than I do, how would the draft look going forward? Would it just
Yeah.
be how it is with football, with all the GMs at home and they're
Yeah. It's gonna be like the NFL. So then people are gonna have to make a choice, like people in the media. Are you gonna just sit around in Philly and either get Zoom calls or get prospects like a few hours later or a day later? Maybe they'll fly them to them. You're still going to
yeah,
see all the first rounders at whatever venue they're at,
well, they
and
will
still if
still
you're
be
they'll
okay.
still be there, and no matter what, people will still have a chance to interview them. But what I think is going to hurt the league on this, I understand that teams will save money, but like those third round guys, like how many of those are they going to fly into Philly to just talk at their headquarters? They're probably all going to be Zoom calls or whatever. And so I just feel like you miss a lot when you have a guy in front of you, one human in front of another. You could get a lot better information than over these Zoom calls. That's what was terrible about that 2020 draft, was just
Right.
everything was over Zoom, and that was the hardest draft for scouts too, by the way, because they were all looking at as much video as they could because the in-person stuff got cut off. And it got cut off fairly early. And I remember I was out there that year. I saw Jamie Drysdale and I saw a few guys like that live. And then all of a sudden, it got cut off. So that could be another reason that, neighbors slipped, is just because, they were just a little worried about them, to be quite
Right.
honest, about the development cycle. So, but yeah, I think it'll still be good for fans to go to the draft. They're gonna make it more fan oriented, and people like in the media are gonna have to decide where they want to be. I might still end up where the fans are and still at the event rather than being at, let's say, Flyers headquarters. I feel
Right.
like I'm gonna miss too much being there.
That's a good point because that was something that I was thinking about a lot. I'm like, how is this going to work? So it looks like for the fans, you guys are good. For the media, it's like, okay, well, there is
Right.
a dilemma. But
There is a
a lot
dilemma there.
a lot of exciting things coming up with this draft. Obviously, last year I feel like the talent was just significantly better, which we all knew. But free agency this year is better than last year, so I guess it's like a give and take. But Russ, thank you so much for coming on. And again, make sure you go to NHLDraftBuzz.com to read all of Russ's work. Again, make sure you check out Locked On Flyers podcast, daily podcast for the Philadelphia Flyers with Russ and Rachel, part of the Locked On Network. So always good to have that. And also your Sirius XM NHL.
Yeah, Sirius XM Channel 91 every Tuesday, like 12:15. And then at the draft, I'm on the pregame and the postgame show for the draft. So from the
Oh, wow.
actual live coverage too. So I've been doing that I've been doing it a while, like maybe 10 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, still, that's awesome.
Oh, it's fun. No, don't get me wrong. I'm on the draft floor. It's great. I love it.
Well, for the NHL draft, I'll be doing daily podcasts from my hotel room. So
There you go.
different. Yeah.
I'll be doing that too, by the way. I mean,
The draft.
I'll be busy.
It helps in Vegas because it's honestly the cheapest flight in terms of going to St. Louis versus Vegas. It's so much cheaper to go to Vegas.
Oh, sure.
But I am doing a couple games this season in St. Louis once I get the schedule. So
Nice.
Lots of traveling. I like to travel for the podcast.
Yeah, St. Louis is fun. I had a good time in that city, and I like the building. I was there for the Cup. I was on the ice for the Cup when they celebrated.
Oh, yeah, which is like the coolest thing.
But actually, it wasn't in St. Louis. They celebrated in Boston, right? But I was there for the game. Yeah, I was there for the game. So that was great, and really enjoyed those guys, especially Thomas. Like I love that kid. I remember that kid from juniors, and he remembered me, and he was so thrilled. He was a rookie, right? And it was so good.
Yeah, Thomas Binnington, all rookies that season, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
And then the
Binnington story is still a great story. It is
incredible. I watch documentaries on it all the time. I'm like such a nerd. Like I
never gave up on him, but I understand why it was easy to give up on him. But goaltenders are tough. Like I didn't even talk about a goaltender today because almost have to be an expert. Like I can tell you who I like, but it doesn't really matter.
And with the Blues, with Hofer, being
you're good for a while.
Probably the guy that's going to replace Binnington one day if needed.
Yes.
I don't want to think about that now. It's like I don't even want to think about goalies.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Lots of good things. Well, thank you again, Russ, for coming on. Appreciate that. And I didn't even say your Twitter. It's at Sportsology.
Yep.
So wanted to make sure I got all the plugs in for that. And for all of you, St. Louis, tomorrow will be an Are We Feeling Blue Friday. So excited for the Friday episodes. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. And like always, let's go Blues.